It's time for the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast, a podcast so good it doesn't need a name. So without any further ado, here's your host, JD. Take it away, Johnny.
Hello my friends, and welcome to episode 52 of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast, recorded on July 20th, 2014. I made it to 52 episodes, guys, so one for every week for about a year. Well, for exactly a year. But I've kind of been, whatever. It's 52! That's a good number. That's a good round number, so I'm excited. I'm your host, JD, aka Gaddock, in case you didn't know, and if I've scared you off already. Today's episode, we will talk about SWTOR, Star Wars The Old Republic, as we do every week on this show, and we will be talking about the dev stream that Chill from UtiniCast did live with the devs in Austin, which was very cool. They went into the Korriban stronghold. It was a shorter episode, less information to glean from it, but there's some really cool stuff that I would like to talk about. And then we'll be talking about a nice listener email that I received. All this and my eternal gratitude for listening in on 52 episodes of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast. Let's force leap right in. Red 2, I've got a topic coming in hot requesting clearance to engage. Lock S-foils and attack positions, you are cleared to discuss. So this week, Bioware did something very gracious and invited Chill from the UtiniCast to visit the Bioware Austin studios. They gave him a trip out there, they showed him around, and then they did a live stream in which they debuted the Dromund Kaas stronghold with Chill. Chill was able to walk around and decorate and do all sorts of things. Bioware also did their own normal live stream this week where they had Courtney Woods and Eric Musco go through the stronghold on Nar Shaddaa, and Musco showed off his terrible interior decorating skills, as he does every time he's running one of these streams. And as usual, there was not a ton of new stuff coming out. There were a few details here and there, which Dolphy has given a great breakdown of. I'll link to that in the show notes. So if you don't want to watch the whole hour stream of Eric Musco fooling around and not really accomplishing much, you can go read Dolphy's notes. She does a pretty good job. But overall, I want to highlight a very important and what I think is one of the coolest things that Galactic Strongholds has to offer, and something I think may be overlooked at first by players, but will slowly turn into players' favorite parts of the Stronghold. And that is the fact that it seems like every one of the decorations that you put down has collision. Therefore, players can go about designing all sorts of crazy, unique things in their Stronghold. Obviously within the hook system, so there will be limitations to how you can use this to your advantage, but players will be able to create their own unique dueling arenas, which is something I talked about last week and the week before as one of the big draws to Strongholds to begin with, is the fact that you can duel in there. You can set your own rules. You don't have to worry about going to the Outlaw's Den and worrying about other people being there and screwing around. You set your own rules in your Stronghold, you invite whoever you want to invite, and you set up your own fight club with up to 60 players, which seems to be the limit. Players will be able to set up their own custom and unique dueling arenas inside the Stronghold, complete with all sorts of obstacles, great places to line of sight, stairs for you to jump up on top of, and that was what Chill was doing, and what Eric Musco also did was just jumping on top of stuff, because we all know MMOers love jumping. So you can set up your obstacles and things like that however you want them. You can set them up in any room you want. Maybe you want it on the stairwell inside your Nar Shaddaa stronghold, or you want it inside of or outside on the terrace on your Coruscant stronghold. Wherever you want, you could set this up. You can set up your own rules. Hey, you can go anywhere you want inside the stronghold while you're dueling. Maybe you try and sneak up behind someone by going and cutting through a room or something like that. I think that dueling in Strongholds will revitalize dueling, basically. I think that when they release those legacy perks of like the punch and the sucker punch and whatever else they had in there, I think players were hoping that that would be a new, unique way to duel, because players love to measure EPs against each other, and one-on-one dueling is probably the best way to do that. So you can set up however you want. It would be really cool, and I doubt this will happen, but if you could somehow flag your whole stronghold so players are basically going all out against each other, if you could flag your stronghold to be an Outlaw's Den, where everyone is out for themselves. Maybe you can form up groups and make your own war zones in your stronghold. So if you want to make like a territory capture stronghold where you have to, the goal is for your team to take over however many rooms in the stronghold. Something like that would be really interesting and really cool, and I think revitalize and actually answer the hopes of the people who have been asking for some form of player-generated content in the game. This is a great way to do that, and I think they have the potential to do something amazing with Galactic Strongholds outside of the realm of just, oh, I want to play house. If you want to play Warzone Designer in your stronghold, I think that would be something really cool and really revitalizing to the PvP community. If you're known as the guy who makes the great PvP strongholds, and you hold the great PvP stronghold tournaments in your stronghold, I think Bioware should do everything in their power to empower the player to do that, to become the community manager, to run those community-driven events, to run those community-driven tournaments. You can have all of these things, and if you just give players the tools to flag your stronghold to be a PvP area, so that you can run larger than just 1v1 dueling. Maybe you could have spawn points be decorations. That would be interesting. If you could set up custom spawn points where players spawn in different areas depending on where they die, where you can do different things with how players spawn, so you don't have to do an arena style, just one life. But I think even players would like the arena style if they could do things like flag their stronghold. So I really think and I really hope that you will have the ability to flag your stronghold like that. I think that's something I really haven't heard brought up anywhere else. I haven't seen it on the streams or brought up on the streams at all. I haven't seen the streams live, but I haven't heard it brought up by any of the devs on the streams. So that's something that would be really cool. I really hope we see something like that. I know with 60 players, it will probably destroy the engine, because we all know anytime you get more than 5 people on screen at once, things start lagging no matter what kind of setup you have. But I think in the end, that should be the player's decision. If the players want to try a big 30-on-30 in a stronghold, I think more power to them, let them try it out. And it'll also give players the ability to do what a lot of people have been asking for a long time, and that is create war zones that have more than 8 people. If you want to work on 16 versus 16, I don't know if there are PvP guilds out there that are big enough to do that, but if you want to create your own 16 versus 16 scenario in your stronghold, you can go ahead and do that if this system is in place. I think duels will be great, and I think that that will initially be one of the big selling points that players are not thinking about and players are not talking about when it comes to strongholds. But I think the possibility of these bigger, more robust things is what really intrigues me about the PvP potential of a stronghold. Right now, we don't have any PvE potential, really. You can't put monsters in your stronghold. You can't play Dungeon Keeper in your stronghold so far. But I think that as a base system, you can build on it to add these crazy, unique things that makes strongholds more than just a stronghold. A lot of players I see are saying, I don't really care about playing house. I don't really care about decorations. That's not what I play the game for. I want to do PvE. I want to do PvP. I want more of that. I don't care about this. Well, I think those players might care more if they saw the potential and they were given the tools to do these type of more in-depth and more complicated things with their stronghold. Decorations are great. I will probably spend lots of cartel coins on couches and things like that. And if you look at games out there like Minecraft or any of the Minecraft ilk, the Terrarias, things like that, and it just goes to show you that if you give players the tools to do something creative and interesting, there will be a lot of junk out there and a lot of crap out there. But if you give the players the tools, there will be some diamonds in the rough. And if you give a rating system, another reason why we need a player rating system in strongholds and not just a how much stuff have you put in your stronghold, which they seem to keep, tangent here, they seem to keep harping on the, yeah, just put stuff everywhere, that's cool, just throw as much stuff as you can, throw it all in your stronghold, and that's how you get your, I hate that mentality. That just doesn't make sense to me. Give the players some scoring, give the players some control of what they see, because I think that just throwing all your crap in your stronghold isn't going to be as cool as the players who make the unique, cool arenas and things like that. Let us vote. Let us get, even if that's abusable, obviously you can just vote your friends up or whatever, but I think you need to add some kind of voting system so that it doesn't get stale and just every stronghold is basically the same. It's all of their crap thrown into the stronghold. No one wants to see that. That's boring. That's old hat. That's stupid. That's something anyone can do. I want to see the person who has the ingenuity to create something special, and I want to be able to vote that up and see that on the top of the leaderboards. So, hope they add that. They're still showing no signs of wanting to add that, but I'm just going to keep saying it and hope it happens. But anyway, I think that this is the kind of stuff Bioware needs to work on for Strongholds. Yes, obviously they're going to keep creating decorations and things like that, but going forward as Strongholds evolves and continues, I think these are the things that will make Strongholds stand out, not only in the game of Star Wars The Old Republic. This is the type of thing that can drag players from other games into SWTOR, and I think that would be great for the game. If players see that this is the WoW-style MMO that also allows players to make their own custom war zones in their Stronghold, I think that would be a big draw for PvPers, and that's something that's really hurting the game right now, is the lack of hardcore PvPers, is the fact that rank queues aren't popping as well. Rank queues aren't popping very frequently at all. Obviously, they have the problem of not announcing the rewards yet. Again, they dropped the ball again on that, but that's a topic for another show. I think just more people in the PvP community would be awesome, and then maybe we could see some kind of dungeon keeper element added later. Just things beyond just decorating, because decorating will be fun, and a lot of players will do it, but after you decorate all your Strongholds, they're all done, what do you do then? And if you add things for players to do in the Stronghold, that adds longevity, that adds to the amount of things that Bioware could put in a Stronghold. Imagine if Bioware all of a sudden they add in a set of decorations that are just the Warzone doodads pack that has like capturable pylons and things like that. Maybe they wouldn't have to be just tied into a score or anything, but even if it was like a pylon that's set to red and you can click on it and set it to green, and then you can click on it and set it to red, and it would switch colors whenever you click on it just by interacting with it. So players could put that in their Stronghold and be able to use that as some kind of score marker, some kind of scoring thing that players can interact with. And you can go from there and take it however you want to take it. Whoever's the great Warzone designer can figure out a way to make that cool and interesting, and you can add all sorts of things like that. And I think that's the design space where Bioware can really take Galactic Strongholds to the next level. So here's hoping we see something like that. Here's hoping we see a scoreboard with player ratings in it for Galactic Strongholds. And here's hoping Galactic Strongholds lives up to everyone's expectations at this point. It is hyped to the moon at this point, and it will only be continually hyped until the launch later this summer. I can't wait for it. Can't wait for the PTS, even though I don't even know if that's going to happen at this point. Bioware, give us the Strongholds already. So obviously I'm going deep there, but I'm just really thinking about how they can make the most out of Strongholds. But as some players may have forgotten, there are other things that will be coming out in patch 2.9, one of which has now been basically confirmed. It's been everything but confirmed. Bioware released a lore piece about the Selkath and Manon, which has been spoiled for a long time now as being the next step in the Forged Alliance's storyline. So that will be interesting to see. Last week I talked about tactical flashpoints, why I like them, and this week I'm going to read a listener email about tactical flashpoints and what I think Bioware is developing the game for. Stick around. And for this week's second topic, I received an email from @JConnell on Twitter, and he says, "Hey JD, I'd like to propose a discussion about the future of SWTOR. In a recent string of tweets between Ben B, SWTOR Miner, and yourself, it was discussed that it is very likely that the upcoming flashpoints will be tactical. I would submit this is no surprise at all. Based on the last 2 releases of flashpoints, we should expect that every new flashpoint going forward will be tactical, with hopefully hard modes to follow afterward. While we've yet to see a hard mode release of the current tactical flashpoints, I do think that we would all love hard modes of the current tacticals to be released. At least the MMO fans among us would want that. The Star Wars fan that just wants more Star Wars storyline to experience likely doesn't care about some of the things that MMO fans would like to see. So is Bioware targeting Star Wars fans or MMO fans? I would submit with the increased number of players anticipated, EA Bioware will continue to release tactical flashpoints. When a company has a huge number of players interested in their product, it only makes sense for them to make changes to allow for them to offer their product to as many people as possible. I know it sounds elitist, but tactical flashpoints do just that. They lower the barrier of entry into SWTOR, allowing even more people to experience the game without having to become as well versed in MMO mechanics as more veteran MMO players already have. So in the end, EA Bioware wins by releasing more tactical flashpoints than the more traditional MMO flashpoints. So the big question is Bioware EA targeting SWTOR fans or MMO fans? Personally, I think that Bioware leans towards MMO fans, while EA just wants Bioware to print money for them, forcing Bioware to target Star Wars fans more than MMO fans. So Jay, you bring up some very interesting points there, and I'd like to talk about a few of them. As I talked about last week, and I believe this email, I received it on Sunday night, as I was publishing my last week's podcast, so you may not have heard my discussion on tactical flashpoints. But overall, I think tactical flashpoints are good for the game, and I think that Bioware should be releasing more of them. I think that it not only allows new players to get in and jump in and try something faster, quicker, easier, because tactical flashpoints generally are easier, but it allows the veteran MMOer who just logs on and wants to do something, wants to do a flashpoint, they don't have to wait for a tanky healer and 2 DPS, because those queue times were much longer than the current tactical flashpoint queue times. You just grab 4 of your friends, or 4 guildies, or even 4 people on the fleet, and bam, you can get right into a flashpoint. You're doing something, which is much better than doing nothing, running laps in the fleet. You also bring up the interesting point of hard mode tactical flashpoints, which we haven't seen to date, but I think hard mode tactical flashpoints would be great for the hardcore MMOer and the Star Wars fan alike. I think that it would be great at training players to learn how to play PvE. You could do tactical flashpoints in such a way that it trains players to do all of the core mechanics and core basics that entry-level raiders need to learn. Things like get out of the fire, or make sure you're behind the boss, or make sure you're not standing in the red stuff, or make sure you're killing ads. All these things, you just have to ramp up the damage a little bit, make maybe a couple more mechanics, make the fights a little bit more dance heavy, a little bit more you have to learn the movements of the fight, but you don't have to go ridiculously overboard. If you take, like I said last episode, the droid boss from Kuat Drive Yards, the one that has the red beam when he gets fully charged and he summons 2 kinds of ads, that fight is super well done, especially while leveling. At 55 it gets a little easy, but all you have to do is buff up the damage a little bit, maybe add a mechanic where when he gets to fully charged, all the ads start radiating electricity or something and dealing raid-wide damage, causing players to make sure that they're killing the ads on time and make sure that when he does hit the 100 stacks of the big giant I'm gonna kill you beam, players know that if the ads aren't down by then, they're doing something wrong. And then you have to make the giant beam kill people. It does kill people while leveling, but when you get to 55, it just stops killing people for some reason. I think a big problem is that at 55, a lot of the tactical flashpoints are trivialized just by the fact that you're at 55 and have all of your abilities. You have all your escape, you have your top tier abilities in your trees. The fights get much easier when it's like that. When you are restricted by the abilities that you have and the gear that you have on your character, when you're just bolstered to a set level that they know, it's a lot easier to balance the fights. And I think that a hard mode tactical flashpoint could take that into account and maybe downscale everyone and bring everyone to a set level and then make it more interesting that way. And I think that works for both the novice MMOer and the seasoned veteran. It gives them something challenging to try out, and all you have to do is grab 4 of your friends, while teaching the novice how to do what they want to do. While teaching the novice how to actually become a seasoned veteran MMOer. After the tactical flashpoints, you join a guild and try out some real MMO PvE, some real raiding where you actually have to heal, tank, and DPS. Because right now, tacticals, you are more than welcome to tank, more than welcome to DPS, or more than welcome to heal, but you don't really have to do any one exceptionally well. You just have to be there and make sure you're doing the mechanics well, and you will eventually kill the boss. I think that's great. It's a great way of setting up the rewards, setting up the success of your group to doing the fights well. From what I found in tactical flashpoints, it's not about the group that has the best gear because you're all bolstered up. It's not about the group at the highest levels, even though as you get higher level, it's easier to do some of the fights because you do have all your abilities. But it's really about who does the mechanics of the fight correctly. If you are killing the ads on time, if you are taking the bombs off of everyone, your group's going to be fine. It might take you a little bit longer, but it's really showing you, okay, you're doing this right, so you're winning. You're not dying. Nobody is having to do the death run. And when someone does it wrong, they do have to do the death run. So I think that Jay is right here in saying that hard mode should be released for the tactical flashpoints, because I think that they work on 2 levels, and if done well, they would satisfy a lot of different niches in the game. Now to your point as a whole, as to Bioware focusing on the seasoned MMOer versus the general populace, the Star Wars fan, the person who might just stumble into the game because they love Star Wars and the buzz for the movies coming up and the buzz for the TV show and things like that. I think that Bioware doesn't really know exactly who it's catering to. Actually, I do know who Bioware is catering to. Bioware is catering to people who will spend money in the cartel market, because that is their cash cow. The good thing for all players is that everyone spends money in the cartel market. I haven't spoken to a single person who's bought nothing in the cartel market. Players of all shapes, sizes, buy all different things in the cartel market. People buy the boosts, people buy the legacy unlocks, people buy rocket boots, things like that. People buy just so they get preferred and they can get rocket boots. Free-to-play players buy it. PvE players buy stuff. PvPers buy stuff. They buy the cartel packs because that's fun. That's something interesting to do. All sorts of players buy stuff on the cartel market. What they buy may be different. The amount that they buy may be different. But everyone in the long run ends up spending some kind of cartel coins in this game. And that's Bioware's target audience. They don't care if you're a Star Wars fan, or if you're the top 1% PvPer or the top 1% PvEer. As long as you're spending cartel coins, they want to cater and get that person to stay in the game. Now, obviously, they do need to look at numbers and see, okay, this percentage of players spend this much, so maybe we tailor some things towards them to try and keep them invested. But I don't think that any particular group gets super special preferential treatment, because they need to keep as many players as they can in the game spending cartel coins. If players start leaving from any of these groups, Bioware is going to see a hit in the cartel market. I don't think Bioware is in a position right now where they can say, we don't care about this group, we're just going to try and focus on this other group. Star Wars fans or MMO fans or whoever it may be. I think they're in a position where they need to take what they can where they can from whoever is willing to pay them. So I think they're going to continue to release patches how they have been, where they go player versus player, player versus environment, maybe an event, maybe a small little thing, and they kind of cycle like that, like they've been doing. And we will continue to see Bioware's release schedule to reflect that, because they need as many people as they can to stay in the game. If Bioware was just like, we're gonna forget about all PvP, we're gonna remove PvP from the game, it's all gonna be raids and flashpoints and things like that, they would see a large drop-off from the people who care about PvP. And while some of the PvEers may be happy and some of the Star Wars fans may be happy, they'd lose a good chunk of revenue from the people who were PvPers, who were buying stuff in the cartel market and had subs, who would go to some other game. And then there's the enormous problem of raids can only be released so fast. I mean, just look at the behemoth company that is Blizzard. They can only release raids every 4 to 6 months. Do you think Bioware's design team is going to be able to do any faster than that? I mean, if we kind of compare the size of the design teams, it's amazing that Bioware releases stuff as fast as they do. And while I don't think that us as consumers should be giving them any slack or cutting them any slack for having a smaller design team, I think that's the reality of the situation. We should expect however much content we think we deserve and we think we need. And if we think other MMOs are giving us better value propositions for our money, then we should move to them. But I still think that Bioware has done a great job with the design team that they have doing as much as they have. I think we will continue to see this cycle that will cater to whoever is willing to give Bioware money because of the long lead times of things like art and QA. You can only do so much of that at a time, and while you're doing that, you can design other things. And I think that's why everyone who plays Star Wars will get something in time. I don't think Bioware wants the Star Wars fan more than they want the MMO fan. I think there are more Star Wars fans in the world, but I don't think you need to cater to one over the other. Obviously, story is something that Star Wars fans would want, and if we're going to talk about the long lead times, then story is going to be at the top of the list of things that take the longest. No matter how Bioware goes about their business, they're always going to want more players playing. And whether that's Star Wars fans or MMOers, it really doesn't matter to them. I would think that MMOers probably are more willing to spend money on things like monthly fees and things like that, whereas Star Wars fans might not be used to that if they are not already MMO fans. So I think they'll continue on their course and try and fulfill everyone's needs. We'll see hard mode tactical flashpoints at some point. I think that SWTOR Miner even said something like that. I'm not sure. I'm sure he'll confirm on my Twitter at some point. But I'm pretty sure he said something like that. We'll see hard mode tacticals, we'll see all sorts of content, we'll see new story content, new raids, new PvP, we'll see a new expansion. I mean, we have heard nothing about this expansion that's probably coming at the end of the year. I guessed on the Galactic Gamers Coalition that the expansion would come out around Christmas time, around the 3-year anniversary of the game, and I still think that's when it'll come out, and we will probably get a new Warzone, a new raid, and new story content. So that's good for everyone. And I think that's what we have to look forward to. So thank you very much, Jay Connell, for your nice email. I will be sending you a nice astromech code for your troubles and for writing me. So thank you very much for that. If you would like a chance to win your own astromech code, all you have to do is email gaddockteague@gaddockgaming.com with your topic, and I will pick the best one, and you will win an astromech code. So this week, because of the 52nd episode, I've decided to forego a Wall of Crazy topic, and we will be talking about the show, or I will be talking about the show, and hopefully you'll be listening to it, so stick around. What? That's impossible, even for a computer. It's not impossible. I used to bullseye Womper Rats in my T-16 back home. They're not much bigger than 2 meters. And this week, in honor of making it to episode number 52, I'd like to thank you, the listener, for making this all possible. I've received so much great feedback about the show. It's made me a better podcaster. It's made the show a better podcast. It's amazing to hear from all of you guys every week on Twitter, on the SWTOR subreddit, through email. I can't thank you guys enough for making this possible. I really can't thank you guys enough. It's been great being in the Star Wars The Old Republic fan site community. When I started in this community, or when I started playing the game really, it felt like the community was so at each other's throats, so cutthroat. No one wanted to help each other out. There was no collaboration. Now there's the Galactic Gamers Coalition that has all sorts of different podcasters. I don't think there's a single podcast that has any ill will against another one. I don't think there's a single fan site that has anything against another one. I think we're all part of this big community. I think the fact that we are part of a game and part of the community for a game that has so much negativity around it, it's kind of forged us in fire and made us all a better community, and made us all better podcasters, better fan site runners, better forum goers, everything. And I think that really speaks volumes for all the other podcasts out there. I mean, when I started my podcast, the only other podcast still running that I remember were Utinicast, Toracast, and Corellian Run Radio, and since then there's been podcasts popping up all the time. There's the Enmity Podcast guys, the SWTOR Escape Podcast, and of course the Bad Feeling guys showed up to make us all look bad and showing us how a real podcast is run. The SWTOR Reforged guys came back, which is amazing. There's been a growth in YouTubers that I've seen. There's a growth in Twitch streamers that I've seen. You guys are supporting my YouTube channel, which is great, and I can't thank you enough for that. And it's really been humbling listening to you guys help me, wanting to help me, being willing to help me through what was honestly a terrible podcast to begin with. I listened to episode 1, which you can't listen to right now because of the whole Podomatic thing that happened a while back. But I'm thinking about re-listing those just so you can laugh at them. If you want to hear the old podcasts, if you want me to load those up, just let me know. I'm more than happy to let you enjoy the laugh with me. But those were terrible podcasts, but you guys stuck with me, and I can't thank you enough for that. This is awesome. The feeling that I have right now is great, and I can't wait to make it to 100, to make it to 2 years, to make it to 400, 500. Who knows? The sky's the limit. And I think that about does it for episode 52. Here's hoping I make it to episode 100. Right now, I'm in a time in my life where there's a lot of changes going on. I'm starting a new job. I'm moving into New York City, which is exciting but exhausting and frustrating and draining and so many other things. But I'm excited. These real-life things may get in the way of me doing my podcast sometimes or my YouTube videos sometimes. I'm actually hoping that Galactic Strongholds doesn't go on the public test server because I won't be able to cover it, very selfishly. But, you know, real life things do get in the way sometimes, and right now I just have a lot of stuff going on. So if you don't see the podcast for a week or you don't see videos for a while, I'm probably just very busy. The show isn't going anywhere. I want to continue doing the show, so don't worry. That's going to happen still. And thank you guys for being understanding in the meantime. And yet again, I will do my end of podcast spiel. As always, if you'd like to contact me, you can send your questions, comments, concerns to, you guessed it, gaddockteague@gaddockgaming.com, or you can tweet them to @gteague on Twitter. Make sure you get your suggestions in for topics you'd like to see covered on the show, so you can win an Astromech code. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher to get weekly podcast updates. And if you're new to the game and thinking of resubscribing, I provided my refer a friend link in the show notes, so if you'd like a little added incentive to come back, feel free to use it. You can also check out my website, gaddockgaming.com, where I post the podcast, blogs, and any other video stuff that I'd like to get up there. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast. This is JD, signing off for the 52nd time.